It's done. You're good.
Oh, yep. Hi guys, it's Amanda from the Michigan City Barn, and we are going to do another Horses in History lesson today. Chocolate wanted to help me with this one. Chocolate is the tallest horse that reigns. He's a 17th three-hand Oldenburg, and he wanted to help me because we're talking about a horse named Brown Beauty, and he thinks he's the Brown Beauty of this barn. So that's why he called dibs on this one. So Chocolate and I are going to tell you a little bit about Brown Beauty. Brown Beauty was around in 1775, and I do mean Brown Beauty, not Black Beauty. Black Beauty is a fictional character in a book, but Brown Beauty was a real-life horse who in 1775 belonged to Samuel Larkin. She was a mare and brown, and they don't know, but historians think that she was probably a Narragansett Pacer, which is a gaited breed that would make for a smooth ride at quick speeds across long distance. So the reason Brown Beauty is important in history, even though none of us hear about her, is how many people have heard about Paul Revere. So Paul Revere made a famous ride to warn the Americans that the British were coming. But obviously, in order to make his ride, he needed a horse. And Brown Beauty was his horse. He didn't own Brown Beauty. He borrowed her from Samuel Larkin. But he rode Brown Beauty for his ride. So Chocolate and I are going to read an excerpt from the poem, which is super duper long. So if you want the whole poem in its entirety, we'll post links again for educational opportunities. There's also a song from Brown Beauty's perspective that Steve Martin's bluegrass band did. So we'll put links to all this up. But Chocolate and I are going to read an excerpt from Paul Revere's ride, and know that Brown Beauty was the horse who Paul Revere rode to do that. So listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light, one if by land and two if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and armed. So Paul Revere told his friend, the British are coming, hang one lantern if they're coming by land, if they're marching, hang two lanterns if they're coming by boat, that way we can warn everybody how they're coming. And a belfry arch is a big, high church tower, so they hang them high so you can see across the river. Then, meanwhile, impatient to mount and ride, booted and spurred with a heavy stride, on the opposite shore walked Paul Revere. Now he patted his horse's side. Now he gazed on the landscape far and near. Then impetuous stamped the earth and turned and tightened his saddle girth. So just like we have girths to hold our saddles on while we ride, so did Paul Revere. But mostly he watched with eager search the belfry tower of the Old North Church as it rose above the graves on the hill, lonely and spectral and somber and still. And lo, as he looks on the belfry's height, a glimmer and then a gleam of light. He springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes till full on his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns. So his friend lit one lamp and then lit the second lamp, and Paul jumped on Brown Beauty and turned her to go. A hurry of hooves in the village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath from the pebbles in passing a spark, struck out by a steed that flies fearless and fleet. That was all, and yet through the gloom and the light, the fate of the nation was riding that night. And the spark struck out by that steed in her flight kindled the land into flame with its heat. So horses wear metal shoes, and when it hit a rock, it threw a spark. He has left the village and mounted the steep, and beneath him, tranquil and broad and deep, is the mystic meeting, the ocean tides, and under the alders that skirt its edge, now soft on the sand, now loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he rides. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear, a voice in the dark, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore. For born on the night wind of the past, through all our history to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere. So again, we've all heard of Paul Revere, and we knew he made a midnight ride. Obviously, to make a midnight ride, he needed a horse. His horse was Brown Beauty, who was owned by Samuel Larkin. Now, history has remembered all of the important people in history well, but they haven't actually remembered the horses very well. So in researching it to do this lesson, I learned that Brown Beauty was never returned to Samuel Larkin after that ride, and they actually have no idea what became of her. But we know that she was important in history. Without her, Paul Revere couldn't have done the ride that we've all heard so much about to warn the Americans that the British were coming. So that's the history lesson today, compliments of chocolate. I'll post all the links in the bottom so that you guys can make it a lesson at home if you want. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks so much.
Hit finish.